Hello guys, welcome to a week of cooking. Davis and I are actually headed to visit my parents in Florida this week, so we're only cooking for tonight, tomorrow, and a little bit of Tuesday. So I figured I'd share some of my easiest and most frequently made recipes. I am getting my sourdough restarted this week. My starter is nice and strong, so I'm gonna start with that recipe today. We can't bake this until tomorrow morning, so while we're completing our stretch and folds tonight, I'm gonna make some homemade chicken noodle soup. So I'm excited to share that with you guys, even though I just wing it, to be honest. I just make soup every week and I like it because I throw everything in a bowl. So it'll actually be nice to document that. Ingredients for the sourdough. First, you're gonna need an active sourdough starter. To feed my starter, I use an all-purpose flour, but to bake, we're actually gonna be using a bread flour. You're also gonna wanna have a rice flour for non-stick purposes later on, salt, and water. And that's gonna be it. Very simple ingredients. Let's get our dough going. We're gonna start with about 200 grams of our starter. Set this aside. We're gonna wanna feed this and bulk it back up. The scale is zeroed. We're gonna do 750 grams of water. I get mine straight from the fridge because I wanna use filtered water, so I do microwave this for about a minute or so just to make sure it's not freezing cold. You want it like room temperature or a little bit warm. I'm gonna mix this together before we add our flour, get it nice and dissolved. Now we're gonna add 22 grams of salt. I use pink Himalayan sea salt. Don't forget to zero the scale. Give that another little mixy. Zero the scale again, and now we're gonna add 1,000 grams of bread flour. Give this a good mix, and this is our dough. I will say, I don't know why, but when fall rolls around, I get so much more excited to bake bread, but it really does do so much better in the summer. Starter has a hard time rising, and the bread has a hard time rising in my experience when the house is cold, and Davis is always yelling at me because I'm turning up the heat to 76, but your starter really will rise so much faster and be a lot stronger at least 76 degrees Fahrenheit or so. I'm gonna get in there with my hands and make sure that this is all really well incorporated. Oh, also I meant to tell you guys, I really don't recommend starting this any later than like 4 o'clock because you will be up so late tending to your dough. I usually try to start by like 2. Today it's like 4, but by the time we do our stretch and folds over the course of like 4 hours or so, I've been stretching and folding, setting alarms throughout the middle of the night. So just start this in the afternoon. My starter is refed and our loaf is going to still rest for another hour. It's about 4 o'clock. Now it's time to get started on our chicken soup. You guys are gonna be so relieved at how easy this is. We're gonna start by getting our chicken going. I'm just gonna use chicken breasts today, but if you hate touching raw meat as much as I do, sometimes I also will just get a rotisserie chicken from Costco. It's great. I'm gonna plop the chicken breasts in my air fryer. This is a no-touch raw meat recipe. I'm gonna cover them in a bit of olive oil. We use these seasonings a lot from Costco. They're so good and they make it really easy because they're just a nice blend. So this is just a salt, pepper, and garlic blend, and I'm going to coat this chicken like my life depends on it. Get it evenly coated in seasoning. Pop this in the air fryer. Bake at like 390, maybe like 23 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and get our vegetables ready. Got these nice and washed off. It is actually criminal that we don't have fresh garlic because every soup needs garlic. For now, we're just gonna get these veggies simmering in the pot. A key I have learned in cooking is to season in layers. So basically every time I add something to the pot, I'm gonna season it with salt. Once your vegetables have been simmering for a few minutes and the onions are translucent, we're gonna add bone broth. You can just use like chicken stock or whatever, but I like to add bone broth for extra protein. I'm gonna do probably 1.5 to 2 of these today. Again, we're seasoning in layers, so we added bone broth, so we're gonna add a bit of salt. I'm gonna put the lid on and bring this to a boil, and then we're gonna add our egg noodles. While the soup is doing her thing, we're gonna complete our first round of 4 stretch and fold, so you're gonna wanna get your hands wet. To do this, you're gonna go on one side of the dough, get your hands under it, and you're gonna gently stretch and fold it over. You don't want to stretch so much that the dough is breaking or anything like that, but I'll give you guys another view so you can see. We're gonna go to the other side, go pull up and stretch over. pull up, stretch over, one more, pull up, fold over. Cover your dough with your damp towel again and let this rest for another 30 minutes. Our chicken is all cooked. I'm gonna blow your mind for a second, or you already know this hack, but it is my favorite way to use the KitchenAid. We're literally just gonna dump it into the KitchenAid, and then this is how we're gonna get shredded chicken. Before I add these, I'm gonna crush them up in here because I don't like when they're too long. And alongside that, I'm just gonna go ahead and add my chicken. I like how finely shredded that is. It's so much easier to eat with a spoon. Towards the end of this is when I like to add my pepper. Pepper can get a little bit bitter if it's heavily cooked, so I like to just add it at the end for some flavor, and I'll also add probably a little bit of garlic powder since I didn't have fresh garlic today. Soup is done, and this is the easiest thing to freeze or reheat, so we'll probably eat this over the next couple days before we leave for Florida. It's been another 30 minutes. We're gonna do our second round of stretch and folds. We're gonna do this round exactly the same as we did the first one, and then the last two will be slightly different. With each round of stretch and folds, your dough is gonna get smoother and more uniform. We're gonna cover that and come back to it again in 30 minutes. For our last two rounds of stretch and folds, we're gonna do something called coil folds. Instead of taking a side, coming up and folding over, we're gonna grab it like this, pull up and let it fold in on itself, and then do that on each side. So I'm gonna get my hands wet, go like this. I'm gonna spin it, and then I'm having Davis hold the bowl down because sometimes it just picks up with the dough. So I'm gonna grab it on each side, pull up, and then flop it down. We're gonna spin it. It's much smoother. We're gonna do one more round of stretch and folds in another half an hour. This part is kind of ambiguous. I'm gonna let this rest on the counter for probably 2 hours because it's 7 o'clock, and then I'll shape it. Basically, what we're gonna look for is bubbles on the top. It should still have a dome shape. Might rise a little bit if you're lucky, and it should be very like jiggly because the bubbles on the inside will make it very airy. So we're gonna just kind of give it some time. The temperature of your house is gonna change really how this works. So I'll just check in with you guys whenever I think mine is ready to be shaped. Okay guys, it's almost 10 p.m. I'm getting tired, and I think our dough like could be shaped, but maybe could wait long. I don't know. This is the hardest part. I think I'm just gonna shape it because I want to go to sleep. Wet hands, wet bench scraper. I'm just gonna roughly separate this. Basically to shape it, I'm just gonna get it in the rough shape of a rectangle. And then I just like to fold it in on itself both ways and roll it. And then we're gonna do our candy canes. Basically just go up and down in the shape of a candy cane. Just fold in the sides, wrap these like a little hug, and then I roll from the side. What we're gonna do now is take our banneton. I've already kind of coated this with rice flour. I'm gonna scoop up your loaf and place it smooth side down. I'm just gonna coat this loaf really well with rice flour, and then I'm gonna use this little bowl. Rice flour on top. We're gonna tuck these babies in for the evening. I'm gonna cover these with a damp dish towel, and I'm gonna leave mine out. Some people do cold ferment these in the refrigerator, but that doesn't typically work as well for me. All right, good morning guys. Let's check on our loaves. I think these are looking pretty good. Still has a little bit of a dome shape, which is great. Some bubbles on the top. Definitely airy on the inside, so we're gonna get these kind of just reshaped and scored, and then toss them in the oven whenever it's ready. So this step, the candy canes, is to create tension on the top here for that crust. You don't want to create so much tension that it like totally bursts like mine just did, but just a little bit to make it into a nice uniform ball. I've transferred both loaves to a little piece of parchment paper with flour, and I've floured the top. I think I'm gonna score a Christmas tree on this one. So we're gonna do our decorative scores first, and then we're gonna do an expansion score at the end. The decorative scores are just very light. There's my Christmas tree, and then at the side here, I'm gonna do a deeper expansion score, otherwise your dough will just kind of pop in random places. This piece is less pretty. I think we should do a snowflake maybe. What am I even doing? I don't know that you can call this a snowflake, but that is what I'm gonna call it. Alrighty. Our oven has finally hit about 450 degrees, so I just took out the Dutch ovens. A very sad snowflake. Alright, those are gonna go in for about 20 minutes. It's been about 20 minutes. We're gonna take the lids off of the Dutch ovens and then put them back in the oven at like 400 degrees. We were at about 450. Just turn it down a little bit. It's not an exact science. And then we're gonna let them bake for another like 10 to 20 minutes, basically just until they're a color that you like. Oh my gosh, our snowflake is not that ugly. Back in the oven they go for like probably just 10. I kind of like mine a little bit of a lighter crust. I think they're looking perfect. Here's our Christmas tree. And there we have perfect sourdough loaves. I really should have let it cool for longer, but we have some serious bubbles today. I'm surprised because I didn't think our sourdough starter was that strong. I'm gonna cut a couple pieces for breakfast today and make some eggs.